what was true years ago is still true today. Who's beeping over there? You're feeling kind of self-conscious, aren't you? It's okay.
A lighter moment from the president's big speech on immigration. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, the roundtable is here. We have George back with us, along with Democratic strategist Donna, Brazile, Democratic Congressman Luis Gutierrez, and former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich. So I want to start with Syria. The president made this decision now to arm the rebels. It came after we heard Bill Clinton weigh in on this. Clinton saying, some people say, okay, see what a big mess it is, stay out. I think that's a big mistake. In fact, the former president suggested that President Obama could be a fool if he were to not get in because of public opposition to our involvement. Well, did Bill Clinton force the president's hand?
Oh, well, I don't think so. Look, I think the administration was already on a two-track strategy. One, to arm the opposition, and I think second is to work toward a political solution to get Assad out of office. We're spending over $500 million in humanitarian aid. There's a refugee problem now in Turkey and Syria. There's no question the administration had to circle the wagon to make sure that they were arming the quote-unquote right people. But the administration, I believe, cautiously decided that it was time to change the political trajectory of what was going on the ground, and therefore they are going to supply the so-called rebels with some arms.
What's your sense, Mr. Speaker? Is this forced politically? I mean, obviously there's been a lot of...
This is an administration that does almost nothing that is methodical, careful, and professional in national security. I mean, they don't take the advice of the generals. They don't take the advice of any... If you were to say to them, what is it going to take to knock Assad out? That is a huge undertaking. He now has Iranian backing, Russian backing. He has Hezbollah coming in because he couldn't win on his own.
Well, in this case, we don't see the generals pushing for that at all. In fact, as we understand it, the generals oppose even a no-fly zone.
The generals would say, because it's all nonsense. I mean, what are you going to accomplish? If the Iranians and the Russians are prepared to arm and equip and support Assad, and if Hezbollah and, by the way, Iranian volunteers are prepared to help kill Syrians for Assad, then the idea that we're going to somehow marginally affect this is a disaster, I think. And this will turn out to be one of those cases where the United States will set itself up to be defeated, and Putin will be quite happy on behalf of Russia to be part of defeating the United States. I think it's a very badly thought out process.
Congressman, are you comfortable with how the president's handling this?
Well, I don't think there's a good solution. So I don't know if comfortable with how the president's handling it is. I really have an opinion. I just think there really isn't a good solution there. Here's what I believe. I mean, if you talk to the intelligence community in the
and you're on the intelligence committee,
and you talk to, see this? Here's what they're going to tell you: the best equipped, the best organized fighters are those allied with Al Qaeda, and those are the ones that are really fighting Assad.
And now we're going to arm the opposition.
And so now we're trying to make a decision: who is it we're going to arm? Here's what can happen, and I think it would be the worst scenario, is that we do arm our proxies, our good rebels, and then the Al-Qaeda start fighting the American proxy good rebels. And you know what Assad says to himself? Great, I now have split my opposition. So look, if you take Iraq, we saw what happened in Iraq. We had, what, 150,000 American men and women there, and during that time, over 300,000 Iraqis died in the ensuing civil war. What makes you think that our involvement is somehow going to solve the problem? So what I say is, look, we really need a diplomatic solution, and it seems to me that the only place we can move today is to force the hand with Russia and with Putin to find a solution that can end the Assad regime.
George, I don't hear anybody thrilled with this.
Well, then the policy should be just don't do something, stand there, because you can always make matters worse. The administration says we're going to get our weapons into the right hands. The Hamiltonians, the Jeffersonians, the Federalists, the Anti-Federalists, the Whigs, fine, let's arm them all, but they're not over there. We don't have people like that there. The Secretary General of the UN, always helpful, weighed in with the sentiment. He said, there's no military solution to this. There was a military solution to the American Civil War, the Russian Civil War, the Spanish Civil War. There's going to be a military solution to this. Someone's going to win. And Assad has backers who mean it. Our side, whatever it is, doesn't.
But they're looking for...
We kept hearing was the Assad regime is on the brink of collapse. For 2 years we've been hearing this. There is absolutely no indication that he isn't, and his regime isn't becoming stronger, that it does not have popular support within Syria, in spite of the fact this is a civil war.
Political solution. They're not looking for a military solution. This is a political solution.
Yes, I agree.
They're trying to bring Assad, to the table to get him to go away.
The table that will end this war will be that the one in the kitchen of the McLean farm at Appomattox. Someone's going to surrender.
But Assad doesn't have one thing. He doesn't have a limited pool of money. He doesn't have oil. And he needs money in order to keep the allies. So I think that economic sanctions can work here.
He has Iranian and
Russian money. And I just want to build on what George said. In the Spanish Civil War, the democracies ineffectively tried to help one side. The dictatorships effectively tried to help the other side. Military power, ruthlessness, and toughness matters in these kind of settings. Virtually all of it now is on Assad's side. And I think the United States proving that it is incapable of being effective will not be a particularly good strategy.
Okay, I want to turn to immigration because we heard from Marco Rubio on this, a very critical week for the immigration bill. We also heard from Speaker of the House John Boehner, an interview with George Will. Take a listen.
What's the most important thing you'll get done this year?
I think immigration reform is probably at the top of that list.
Signed into law?
I think by the end of the year we could have a bill.
One that passes the House, passes the Senate, signed by the President?
Yeah, no question.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the big question here is, should John Boehner go forward with a bill that does not have the support of a majority of Republicans?
No, and I don't think he will. I think John Boehner will find a way to get a majority of Republicans, and will find a way to get a majority of Democrats. And it will be a more conservative bill than the Senate, and it will be a bill that is stronger on border security than the Senate.
You really think a majority of Republicans are going to sign on to a bill that includes a path to citizenship?
Sure, depending on how long the path is and what the circumstances are. Yeah, I think. Look, most people have two general beliefs. One is that you've got to do something when you have 11 million people who are currently outside the legal system. The other is you've got to control the future, and that means you've got to control the border, and you've got to have some kind of employment system that includes guest workers, or you're just going to kid yourself and 10 years from now be back in the same thing. I think Boehner has been very careful, and he's not going to carry everybody, but I think he will carry a majority of the House Republican Conference, or he won't bring a bill to the floor.
Congressman Gutierrez, I have heard that you're going to meet, you and the Hispanic Democrats now are going to meet with the Speaker this week.
Yeah, and I think that that's a wonderful opportunity to engage in bipartisanship.
Do you think he's serious?
I certainly hope so. I will tell you something. I've been in Congress 20 years. This is the first time that I know 25, 30 Democrats, members of the Hispanic Congressional Caucus under the leadership of Ruben Hinojosa, have gone to the Speaker, a speaker not of our party, and said, we want to engage you in a conversation because we're looking for a solution. What I would hope is that Speaker Boehner will embrace our coming to him and that we can work collectively. Because, look, this cannot be a partisan issue. Look, you can talk about Benghazi, and we can talk about Syria, we can talk about Obamacare and its implementation. Let's not let this issue, the one issue in which we have seen Republicans and Democrats come together, fall into the morass of the bickering and the fighting here in Washington, D.C. I want to say it's Father's Day, right? A study just came out this week in Illinois. 56,000 children were left without a mom or a dad, some without parents in the last 6 years. It's something we have to end. It's a tragedy what's happening to American immigrant families.
If this bill is not pulled to the right in the House, we saw what Steve King did with the DREAM Act. This is a major test of whether or not our political system can get real things done. And I do believe with the bipartisan support that we've seen in the Senate that there's a chance, if all of these poison pills are not placed in its path, that we could see a path to getting this done this year, immigration reform.
Donna uses the word poison pill to describe probably Cornyn's amendment. Now, Cornyn has an amendment that is 134 pages long to a bill that's, what, 800 and some pages
800
long?
and some pages, yep.
Well, it's long because the bill itself is because there are provisions in it, for example, special exemptions for foreign ski instructors at the behest of a good senator from Colorado. This is a very complicated Rubik's Cube they put together, and it comes down to the killer bees, benefits and borders. If you don't secure the borders, you're not going to pass either house.
And what I think is the following. Look, how do you secure the border? I think we know, and there's a bipartisan way to secure the border. Securing the border means you have to allow people to come through the system. That releases the stress on the border. Number two, you need to legalize the 11 million that are here so we stop deporting them and they continue to try to come back to their American citizen children.
John,
and lastly, think about it. They keep talking about the magnet. E-Verify. Let's have a verification system for employment in America that makes sure that those of us born in this country get the first crack at any job created in this country so that we stop it. But it can't be just that border. That border has many other competing interests that keep it secure or unsecure.
The question of border security is now tangled up with the IRS and the Justice Department and the general pervasive distrust of the executive branch, because what the bill says is the executive branch will certify if the border is secure. I don't believe that the Republicans in Congress are going to take that. They're going to say, they're going to vote for a bill or against a bill, whether or not it has Congress shall certify, not the executive branch, because no one trusts the executive branch anymore.
But all of the border metrics.
Donna, how much further are Democrats willing to move on this?
I don't think Democrats. I mean, look, Chuck Schumer said he's looking for an answer. So he's working with John McCain and the other members of the gang. This is the only show where I can talk about gangs to try to find a solution to the 1,969 miles of the border. But the 2007 immigration bill that failed had metrics that the Obama administration has met in securing the border. We spent billions securing the border. I don't know how much more we can do, but I guess we'll learn once another compromise.
Okay, we've got to take a quick break.